Well, we live in a time where there's tremendous fear and where there are powerful voices saying that the best pathway forward is appeasement. I don't agree. In fact, I would submit to you that for the church, for God's people, it's time to move from appeasement to advocacy for the truth. It truly is. I believe in ways that we've never been asked before. We're going to have to say no to ungodliness. In our homes, we have to begin there. We have to stop excusing it. We have to stop accommodating it. We have to stop all the things we have done. We've winked at it. We've nodded at it. We've relabeled it. We have struggled with this. But we're going to have to do it in our churches as well, and there's not a great deal of appetite for it there either. Then we'll have to say no to ungodliness in our schools. How long will we continue to advocate for wickedness in our schools and be passive? The fact that someone raises their hand and says they choose to be wicked does not mean that position should be encouraged, defended, and protected. It's still evil. If they're preying on our children with destructive things, if they're sexualizing our small children, it's not a position that should be respected and defended. It's wrong. And the church is addled and confused. I believe wherever the Lord provides us with the opportunity, it's time for us to begin to tell the truth. Our reality, at least in my lifetime, is we've spent decades accommodating evil. We've even developed a culture and a language of capitulation. You recognize it when you hear it. In polite company, we don't talk about faith or politics. We're to separate the church and the state. Well, that argument only works on one side of the equation because the state has no problem meddling with the church. We don't want to offend unbelievers. We want to build bridges of understanding. We don't want to be judgmental. I mean, after all, aren't we all sinners just saved by grace? I mean, we have a whole vocabulary of capitulation. Our cowardice combined with very little fear of God has resulted in a church that is anemic and for the most part feckless. So I have some questions. Actually, we're going to try to answer them from Scripture tonight, so they're not just rhetorical to me. Does our faith belong in the public square? Should our faith affect how we do business? How we select leaders? And if so, how? Should we discuss our beliefs at work? Should churches engage in discussions regarding current events? I promise you, those questions would have seemed absurd to the church throughout history. Even to the church in the book of Acts. Now, I mentioned our Bible reading. We're working through the historical books, 1 Kings and 2 Kings, and I just couldn't get past some of this, so we're going to step into it for a minute. I think it's on point with our topic. If you don't agree, sorry. 1 Kings 16. By this point in Israelite history, I'm sure you know, there's been a civil war and the nation of Israel is divided, and there's actually two nations. It's the same geographic footprint that was Israel of King David and King Solomon, but after Solomon's death, there's civil war and the nation is divided. The northern kingdom is Israel and the southern kingdom is Judah. If you need a historical parallel, just imagine for the American Civil War, it ended with two nations. Well, that's what happened in Israel. And so the historical books give you the history of both nations simultaneously. They tell you who's king in Israel by comparing who's king in Judah and how long they've been on the throne or vice versa. If you don't know that, it's a really confusing part of the book. So in 1 Kings 16 and verse 29, it says, in the 38th year of Asa, the king of Judah, the southern kingdom, Ahab, the son of Omri, became king of Israel. And he reigned in Samaria. Samaria is the capital city over the northern kingdom of Israel. What's the capital city of the southern kingdom of Judah? Jerusalem. This really is a smart group. He reigned in Samaria over Israel for 22 years. Ahab did more evil in the eyes of the Lord than any of those before him. Well, there you go. How many of you'd like to make the book for being the gold standard of evil? I mean, there had been some scandalous characters before him. Verse 31, it says, he not only considered it trivial to commit the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. Up until Ahab, Jeroboam was the gold standard. He's the one that implemented idol worship in the northern kingdom. He's the one that told the people not to go to Jerusalem any longer to worship the Lord, where they were commanded to go. He had been the standard, but when Ahab came along, the language that the author uses in Kings intrigues me. He said he considered it trivial to be as wicked as Jeroboam. He said Jeroboam was in the shallow end of the pool of evil. Ahab got out in the deep water. He also married Jezebel, the daughter of somebody from somewhere, and began to serve Baal and to worship him. And he set up an altar for Baal in the temple. And he built in Samaria. And he also made an Asherah pole and did more to arouse the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, than did all the kings of Israel before him. So, in summary, and it's an important note because he's an important character, Ahab is uniquely evil, establishing new standards for dishonoring God. We're watching some of that. I mean, they're not new of the course of human civilization, but in our lifetime and in our culture, we are walking out new ways of dishonoring God, mocking God, with a brazenness we are not accustomed to. Ahab institutionalized wickedness. He expanded opportunities for others. By the time we get to Mount Carmel, where there's this confrontation between the prophets of Ahab and the gods that he's led the people into, because of the temples he built and the altars he set up, on Mount Carmel, there's 450 prophets of Baal and another 400 prophets of Asherah. So he is supporting and institutionalizing wickedness that is leading the nation in a destructive place. Who leads makes a difference. Now, in the very next chapter, God raises up a voice to stand in opposition to Ahab. Some of you know the story really well. Elijah the Tishbite. You'd have to be called by God if you have that name. There's a lot to overcome. From Tishba in Gilead said to Ahab, Elijah goes and finds Ahab. And this is his message. As the Lord, the God of Israel lives, whom I serve, there'll be neither dew nor rain in the next few years, except at my word. Wow. This is an agricultural society. So they depend on the rain for their crops, for their economic well-being, as well as their food, for their livelihood. If there's no rain and there are no crops, it will devastate the economy. The people will be starving. And Elijah said, because of your choices, it won't rain again until I say so. Let me ask you a question. Do you think Elijah thought it was okay to talk about current events? What if Elijah had just gathered the people together and said, I want to read to you the books of Moses and remind you about the Red Sea crossing. Let's talk about Joshua and the walls of Jericho falling. He had a wealth of information that he could have directed the people's attention towards. But he understood the Spirit of God saying to him, go speak to the king and say, if you continue to practice evil, it will bring devastation. I'm telling you, if you have the confidence in the Lord to make a declaration that it won't rain until I tell you it's going to rain, in my mind, I'm thinking you're better than Superman. You're faster than a speeding bullet. You can leap a building in a single bound. I don't remember the whole thing, but right? Look at the next sentence. It says, the word of the Lord came to Elijah, leave here, turn eastward, and hide in the Kerith ravine east of the Jordan. Excuse me? Go tell the king that the economy is going to be devastated and the people are going to starve. and now go hide. Cross the Jordan River. I mean, he's going to have to make quite a difficult journey. Go cross the Jordan River, hide in a ravine. You'll drink from the brook. I've directed the ravens to supply you with food there. So he did what the Lord told him. And he went to the ravine east of the Jordan, and he stayed there. And the ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. I'm taking a minute with it because it's difficult for me to reconcile. Hearing from the Lord with an authority that would speak to the direction of a nation. And then the Lord saying to you, you go hide, and I'm going to have the ravens feed you. You see, I have either been coached towards or I've fabricated of myself a sense of what it means to hear from the Lord, and it would not include hiding. I think it's an important point for us because there are times when speaking the truth will bring things to you other than applause. It will limit some invitations. And so much of our courage has been balanced against, well, what would the consequence be? Would everybody love me more if I spoke the truth? What if I said to someone that I cared about, it seems to me the pathway you're on is destructive? Have you considered it carefully? I don't really think I can support you in that. We wouldn't want to do that because it might disrupt a relationship. See, I think we've been coached towards a whole set of behaviors and choices that lead us away from a lot of things we're invited towards in Scripture. Elijah, you go tell the king, I'm watching. And again, this isn't about pagan and this isn't godly and ungodly. These are the covenant people of God. If we used a New Testament analogy, this is everybody under the covenant. These are behaviors amongst the folk. This isn't an us and them discussion.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel. You know the drill. Hit the bell for notifications. If you want to, leave a comment.